It's a short track from the woods. It's a short track from the woods. It's a short track, that's what it is. A short track from the woods.
I thought you'd say something about like the neighborhood, because we're at our homesteads. Rhymes with wood, hood. Yeah, it's okay. You did great.
It's a short track from the neighborhood.
Which happens to be in the woods. There you go. Now we're getting something.
All right. It's a short track for the Paddle and Portage podcast. We've got an update from the Solitude of Four. They are the group of four paddlers headed from Seagull Lake at the end of the Gunflint Trail all the way up to Hudson Bay. Heard from them in a recent episode on the podcast, and as they promised, they have shared an update with us on the podcast. We've got 4 audio updates, and let's start with our pal Timea.
This is Timea. I have been reflecting on a question that you have asked us when we were at Wilderness Canoe Base, and that being, what are some challenges that we expect occurring during our journey? And I think all of us answered that challenges are woven into the fabric of a canoe trip. They just get to be part of it, and we, from small things like communication into weather, but something that we have been thinking about and checking about a lot more have been fires. And this summer there has been a lot of fire bans in Manitoba and Ontario, which are both provinces that we get to paddle through. So we have actually made no fires this whole time because it has been so dry. And we've had experiences in Whiteshell Providential Park, which is in Manitoba on the Winnipeg River, where the backcountry campsites have been closed, and they opened up very fortunately on the day that we were entering the park. And so these fires are like it's not only affecting us as paddlers, but like thinking of what are all the like remote communities that are being affected by them. Later on this trip, we will be paddling from Norway House towards God's Lake, and there have been evacuations on Cross Lake. We have also seen, when we were on Lac the Bonnie, which is portion of the Winnipeg River, there was one evening, it was actually on Canada Day, July 1st, when we were setting up camp and eating dinner. There was just this constant hum of helicopters, and they were flying in to the lake with buckets of water to refill, and they would just fly away to go dump them somewhere and fly back to refill with those buckets. And even though the restrictions and even the air quality in this area is better now, there are still little hot spots that need to be taken care of. And same thing happened earlier in June in the Boundary Waters on the Ely side I think it was on the Horse River, where there was a crew working, and we actually bumped into the face of the Boundary Waters safety videos, Nancy, who was there with a crew tending and for the area and people passing through, and there was a whole crew of firefighters that was on making sure these fires were not spreading.
Hello, I'm Bear Paulson from North Star Canoes. This is titled Minnesota is Unique. Sven and Ole got stuck here and never left. We have more Scandinavians per capita than the countries clustered around the Baltic Sea. We are the land of Lutefisk and Lefse. Rocky and Bullwinkle added to our uncommon fame. Frostbite Falls is the icebox of the nation. I cheered when it was below zero for the Super Bowl in Minneapolis a while back. We needed that to cement our frigid reputation. Minnesota is also unique in having 3 major watersheds. From the BWCA, paddlers can go north to Hudson Bay, or east to the Atlantic, or with some portaging south down the Mississippi. North Star is unique too. We build canoes with an incredible blend of seaworthiness and efficiency. Seaworthiness means you'll be safe when the wind kicks up. Efficiency lets you get where you want to go. North Stars are easy to paddle on glassy days and safe to paddle on rough ones. Rent a North Star at nearly all the BWCA outfitters, or purchase a new one from retailers nationwide.
All right. Good to hear from Timea out there. And up next, let's head back to Canada and see how Ryan's holding up.
Hi, Joe. This is Ryan from the Solitude of Four canoe group, and I wanted to share about leaving on our trip and starting on Seagull Lake in the Boundary Waters. We had been doing our final packing and preparing at Wilderness Canoe Base on Fishhook Island on Seagull Lake. We spent 2 weeks there finishing packing our food and getting our gear ready. And the whole time we were there, staff training was starting and a new community of canoe guides was forming and preparing for their own trips, guiding youth in the Boundary Waters. While we were preparing for our trip, and we were off doing our own thing, but still a part of this community in a really beautiful way. And it was so wonderful to be embraced by other paddlers who were excited for what we were doing. And we got to share about our trip and how it came about and how being at Wilderness and guiding in the Boundary Waters prepared us for setting out on a different kind of trip. And we were able to have a send-off service in the outdoor chapel at Wilderness, where the whole staff and some of our friends and family were able to gather. We had wonderful service where they wished us well and prayed for us as we set off on our journey. It was so wonderful to, again, be embraced by that community and know that we are a part of that community, even though we are not sticking around to canoe guide with them. But through going on this trip, we are a part of the summer staff there in a really special way. It was so wonderful to be embraced by all of those people and for them to understand what it means to go on a trip like this.
And this episode of the Paddle and Portage podcast comes from Loon's Nest Coffee. They're located on the Gunflint Trail in the Mid-Trail area. A lot of great things about Loon's Nest Coffee, one of them being that they open at 7 a.m. So they're open early to get you started on your canoe trip. They've got food there in addition to, of course, all the different espresso drinks, the coffee drinks. All the coffee from Loon's Nest comes from Carlson Roasting right here in Minnesota. That's the umbrella, sort of the mothership of Loon's Nest Coffee, Carlson Roasting. It's Bob Carlson, the Carlson family that own and operate this. And absolutely a family business right on the Gunflint Trail. It's all organic and fair trade coffee. We go in there a lot, stop in, talk with Bob and the crew there at Loon's Nest. Really appreciate swinging in there to start the trip, or they're open in the afternoons too, so we'll pop in after we've been paddling and fishing up the Gunflint. Always just enjoy talking with the team there at Loon's Nest Coffee and appreciate their support. They're looking forward to serving you this summer 2025. Find them on the Gunflint Trail, Loon's Nest Coffee.
This is Maren here, and I'm standing out on the lawn of the houses we're camping at, looking out at the Winnipeg River and the sun setting. So Lake of the Woods, I think, was, along with Lake Winnipeg, one of the lakes that people really warned us about before we began this trip. A lot of stories of really big waves, big storms, unpredictable weather, and getting lost in the many, many islands on that big lake. So when we arrived to that lake, I think we were all feeling a little bit intimidated, like this is a lake that everyone said is a little dangerous, so we were definitely nervous, had a lot of anticipation. But for most of our time on that lake, we were unexpectedly surprised to have a lot of tailwinds, really beautiful weather, clear skies, maybe like a light rainstorm here and there, but nothing big at all. And we were just sailing through that lake until the last day. And like the night before our last day, I was thinking about how easy it had been to go through this lake that had been like such a big deal in my mind. But that morning we woke up and we were stretching on a rock, as we do every morning before getting in our canoes, and looking out at some pretty big waves, some pretty strong headwinds, and just like preparing ourselves for those winds and for that day. And we paddled for a while, and there were some big waves, some really strong winds. We just kept paddling and paddling. You know, we were island hopping, trying to make it to Kenora, which was like the town right at the Winnipeg River. And it was taking us a pretty long time, pretty long day. And these motorboats would be passing us. One motorboat even yelled at us, "You can make it, you can get there." Like, it was just like really difficult weather. And it was weather that definitely challenged us and, I don't know, excited us. It got our blood pumping a little bit more than the past time in Lake of the Woods did. And I think it also showed us like this lake does have a lot of power, and we got really lucky. And as we gotten behind one of the islands, we look up at the sky and we see this like line of blue, almost like greenish gray clouds just like slowly coming towards us. And we all look at each other and just start paddling as fast as we can to the shoreline. We start to hear the thunder, and the wind starts to pick up a little bit. And, you know, we hop out of our canoes and we just like are huddled under a brown tarp, just standing there with our rain gear on, under this tarp on this like gravel beach. And every once in a while we'd like peek out under the tarp and look out at the waves, and it would just be like huge waves, pouring rain, you know, thunder and lightning just like all over the place on top of us. Finally the storm settled down a bit, and we thought it was our window to go for it, try to get to Kenora. We were getting pretty close, and we paddled and we made it. I think by the end we still had a bit of a headwind paddling into Kenora, and we paddled right up to, there's this Safeway, a grocery store like right on the water, because we had some stuff we wanted to buy before finding a spot to camp that night.
Here's the member of the Solitude of Four, Kathleen.
I just was reflecting a little bit today about the people we have met along our journey and the hospitality we've received and the kindness that's met us in moments that we weren't expecting it, but had the capacity to accept it. In the town of Kenora, it was a super wet and rainy day, and we were looking for a place to camp, but it was a bigger like town as far as like the towns we've gone through. It was like an actual city, and so there weren't really many places to just camp and pitch a tent for free. And so we were on the side of the road with our canoes tied up in the water, looking online for a place to camp, and this couple, Jeff and Susan, came up to us and offered us beds and a washing machine and a place to dry our clothes. And we had been so wet and cold all day, and with one look at each other, we all knew we were going to accept that with so much grace and love. And being guests in someone's house is so wonderful, but also we could tell from them hosting us, we had made their day as well. And they were so interested in hearing our stories, and we were so interested in hearing theirs. And we had been just the four of us in our little community for so long that bringing two more people into it and sharing our lives for that one night with theirs was really, really meaningful. And the very next day we were trying to cross a dam and had asked so many people and researched, like, how do we get across this dam? There was no portage around it. And so we asked these two women who were gardening how to get across the dam, and they said, oh, we're almost done working. We would love to take you across. And so a few minutes later, they met us at the landing, and we had loaded everything up in their big pickup truck and trailer, and it was just like such a joyous ride. There were 6 of us in their pickup truck, and there were 2 dogs and 2 canoes hanging off the back and 5 packs, and it was just like this beautiful moment of chaos and kindness coming together. And I mean, just people know that we're on a journey and are really excited to be a part of it in any way they can, whether it's standing on their dock and directing us towards the next dam or telling us about the weather. I mean, just like people are so excited to be a part of our journey, and that is really, really meaningful. And I'm so grateful that both my group members and me are excited to accept that, because those people who have been a part of it, who stop off at our campsite and say, what are you all doing? Or that talk to us from the water and say they can tell we're on a big adventure and would love to offer us a beer if they had one. Like, those are the moments that we keep talking about, because it's lives that got to cross with ours. So that was something that I've been reflecting on in this first half of the journey, and something I know we will continue to encounter as we continue on.
The Solitude of Four.
Sort of consider them the contemplative crew heading to Hudson Bay. You know, every group kind of creates their own unique character, and at least my impression of this group prior to their departure was that they were, you know, that sort of understated, inward-focused bunch of folks, more doers than sayers kind of crew.
Not the showboat, check it out over here, look at us type of crowd.
Yeah, so like not like us. You know?
That's probably why we get along.
Exactly. And you never know how these trips are going to unfold, especially when it's kind of a first. And just can't say more how proud I am of this crew and the way they're tackling this expedition. Hope they know we're cheering for them.
Yeah, I think they do. I think a lot of people from Wilderness Canoe Base, obviously, but all over Minnesota, and people have been following their story. You know, it really goes back, too, to what Bob O'Hara said, who, the iconic paddler Bob, who we've known for years on the podcast, and outfitted them with canoes and gear and so forth. And he said, you know, the thing about this group is they're the smartest group of individuals that he sat down with. Like, collectively, it was just in awe, basically. They're like, these are really smart people here at the table.
Absolutely, and I love the idea of, you know, multiple intelligences. You know, there's many ways that people can be smart, and I think there are many ways that this group is smart. Intuitively, contemplatively, intellectually. It's just a group that has spent some time, for especially how old they are, just really thinking about and feeling, I love that, and feeling about their lives.
Yeah, and they bring different tangibles, like how, I mean, our group does too. Like, K-Man ties the knots, picks out the logistical campsite. Dickus brings the
emotion and
yes.
chaos, humor.
Yeah.
Or,
definitely emotion.
Definitely our feeler, our biggest feeler, our most expressive feeler.
Yeah. You, the LB, bringing in the perspective of travel, adventure, journey, like the real, we're out here, kind of the buzz of the trip almost, you know, like, this is it. We're in.
Maybe hype. Am I the hype human?
The LB, the hype.
Whoop, whoop. That's like a loon. Well, loon hype. And Freddie.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring vision, you bring ambition, and you bring foresight into where we're headed and what we're doing.
Nice. Yeah, so like just like that.
But the unique thing is you change one member of a group and the group dynamic changes because it's a system and it all is playing off of each other. And so what I think is cool about these groups is that they self-selected based on what they really thought would bring them the most success. And that is incredible. And Bob recognized the significance of their individual and collective contributions in the same way that, you know, numerous folks that we've talked to on the podcast over the years speak so reflectively about group dynamics and about who they choose to go into the woods with or take into the woods. And, you know, it matters.
It really matters. And it's just awesome to see the Solitude of Four just making this progress, traveling deeper into Canada. We'll keep cheering them on, keep sharing updates as they come in, as we share short track updates from the neighborhood in the woods.
And the neighborhood in the woods, we're surrounded by trees and the birds and the bees. And I'm not talking about the sexy type, I'm talking about the kind that likes to flight around my head, those mosquitoes too. Oh no, I don't know what to do.